Pranams. So we continue the chapter on three kinds of happiness and sorrow. This is from Pujya Lalaji's book, Truth Eternal. Before we get into this, let us center ourselves with a prayer that with His grace and love we be able to understand the words and be in a position to apply this knowledge in real life. So let's pray and meditate for a few minutes. That's all. So we begin. Three kinds of happiness and sorrow. These are very complex topics. He uses many Sanskrit words and he classifies them based on those um, parameters of body, subtle bodies, and causal body. What impacts what? So, based on causes and bodies being affected, he has classified them into three groups: Adi Bhautika, Adi Devika, and Adhyatmikta. These are sources. In general, it's a broader sense. So, in number one, he says Bhuta means an element. Bhuta, meaning an element, he has considered five basic elements. Of course, in modern periodic table, we have much more. We have 100 plus, close to 120 perhaps. And more are on the way. More and more elements are being found. But this is in general. What manifests all these elements, known, unknown, manifested elements. The creation which is made of these elements, whether creation is earthly or ethereal, is called Adi Bhautika, of the elements of nature. The happiness that is caused by the combination of these elements, whether gross or subtle, or by the disposition of mind settling on them, is called Adi Bhautika happiness, material happiness. Likewise, sorrow. And the sorrow which is caused by disposition being removed or unsettled from them is known as Adi Bhautika sorrow or material sorrow. What sort of examples can we give? When you're walking in hot summer, right now in Kana we are working, trying to deweed things and remove a lot of plastics and garbage from all around. A lot of concrete lying around being shifted, unused construction material, heavy duty, being lifted in the hot sun. This is all related to material causing us. It depends. If you're liking this work, you'll be happy. If your disposition is not towards it, you'll be sorrow. Oh, I have to work in this khana under this heat. So, to the same work, you can have double response. A group of people who will say, "Oh, I'm so happy, I'm working, my health is improved." In fact, one of our Abhyasi, he mentioned to me yesterday that he was on 30 units of insulin. And just within 3 days of starting this work, he worked 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the evening. He said he has stopped taking insulin. Now he is only on these oral tablets only. And it's dangerously going down. I said, even cut down these oral tablets as well, slowly and slowly in consultation with your doctor. So to him, it's such a great joy. But to some individuals, they like to hide and they pretend working, and it's such a painful thing to see how lethargic they are. Their disposition is not towards joyful working. And what makes them like that? Why are they like that? Some people are so happy working. Some people just simply drag their feet. It's an attitude. What is behind this attitude? What causes this attitude? It's not only samskars from the past life. You are creating very many new samskars as we go along on this march. You don't like something, and then you react, and then you hide, and then you create other excuses. All these things fuels to the already existing samskaras. Anyway, too much of happiness also perhaps can build up a samskar. If you remain too much attached to it, see, and then you skip meditation. Oh, I love working in the ashram. There are people like that, and they skip meditation. They quote also that Babuji says volunteer work grants you greater blessings, much more than meditation. True. But when you make that as your goal, I think it becomes counterproductive. So it depends where your heart is. Are you so greedy about it? Then it won't work. One has to be very natural in such matters. Your heart is inclined, free flowing to work, go ahead and do it. Idea is to remain meditative with open eyes. Can I postpone this work and do my meditation? Surely, when you have time, time management is the key. If I can work in cooler hours in the morning, why not? I can practice during morning hours my meditation with open eyes that can percolate down during the daytime when you will be actually working, doing something else with the world. This technique will come to your rescue. Volunteer work, working with open eyes, and still remaining meditative. Imagine a person disliking this such sort of volunteer work. Can he be meditative? So it will become counterproductive. Babuji gives a very beautiful example, I remember while I'm talking. He says, laborers working in the farms, what happens with their muscles? They're always cursing the landlord. I have to work. I don't like to work. But I have to work because I need food. We sympathize. But with this attitude, their muscles become weaker, physical health goes down. But much aggressive labor is done in gym. But there the attitude is different. I'm building my muscles. This attitude changes everything. Hey, Babuji gives another example. He said there are jail inmates and there are jail officers. One group of people, they're always looking for a job in a jail. Nothing much to do, perhaps. While the other group who are sentenced to jail, their life is pathetic. Freedom is lost. Well, Gandhiji had a different attitude. He wanted to fill up the jail for freedom. Well, pre independence, this had a flavor, this had its own fragrance, this also had its spirit. More and more people joyfully entered the jail for a single cause that brought them joy. So, again, it's all a matter of attitude, how we look at the work, how we see the next moment. You can think of many such examples in life which are caused by such things. I get very affected sometimes. What makes me sad? Sometimes, there's too much of smoke in the kitchen and they invite you for lunch and the smoke is still there and you can't handle it. You have to open the windows and blah 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 and then please help me with all these things. But every day when it becomes the same scenario where you have to repeat this exercise again and again, again and again, then you feel sad. Not only sorrow, you become sad. You know what is the next phase after being angry? You become sad. You can't get angry anymore because you are so sad because of the situation. Where you have to repeat things within a family or repeat things in the office. But the same thing makes you very sad. It's too much to get angry. Even anger doesn't help now. So you become helpless. So, in order to avoid all these things, the extent to which the sadness can proliferate, anger, sorrow, people who work around us, people with whom we work, we need to anticipate in advance what is going to be the outcome of all that I'm doing. Will the other member enjoy this or dislike this? So one has to fine tune in a family the idiosyncrasies, interpersonal idiosyncrasies, and see what the other person is liking or disliking. Grandfather smoking away his cigarette in front of 2-year-old. What happens to a new mother's heart? You can give so many examples like that. These are small, small things, but having a mega effect at an emotional level. Lalaji continues, says, sound, touch, form, taste, and smell. These are subtle elements. Some noises you don't like, certain music you love, some touch which is so, it raises your hair in a very painful way. Why is he touching me like that? Or why is he touching me like that? Anyway, taste and smell. They can all trigger unpleasant vibrations in our heart, which can lead you to becoming angry, sad. Lalaji says ether, air, fire, water, and earth. These are gross elements, panchabhutas. The creation which is made of these elements is all adi bhautika or material. Bhautika means material. Regarding miseries, is another phase of sorrow. If you recollect one of the messages of Babuji given on 30th April 1982, the very beginning he starts like that. He says, there are miseries all around for the embodied one. I repeat, there are miseries all around for the embodied one. Means as long as you are incarnated, there will be miseries. He has identified the cause, the body, incarnation. Even then, he says, even then, we remain so much attached to the body. We remain too much preoccupied with bodily businesses. We identify ourselves with this physical form to a large extent. It is not that we don't identify ourselves or remain busy at a mental level or emotional level. That too gives a different level of happiness as well as unhappiness. There are miseries all around for the embodied one. Even then, we remain so much attached to the body that this thing does not forsake us up to the end. And we even wish to be born again. So he's taking the whole matter further and says how we make the whole situation even worse. That this life was not enough. You want to be embodied again and again, again and again. But he gives a solution also in that message. How we can get out of all this. Though there is limitations ad nauseum, our identification with the body, identification with our emotional and mental body. So we'll explore into these solutions as well and see what Lalaji's opinions are also. They're all exactly same. But as we were reading previously on knowledge, upasana, and happiness, how Sahajmarg has evolved since Santamat. Santamat was the name of the path during Lalaji's times, which became Sahajmarg after receiving instructions from Lord Krishna that let it be now known as Sahajmarg. So the ways, philosophical ways and understanding of how to transcend both happiness and sorrow. As long as we strive for happiness and avoid sorrow, there will be problems. Recollect the example of that scissor, two blades of a scissor, one very sharp because it is unused, one very blunt because it is overused. Pleasure part of our existence is overused, so each time you need more and more pleasure, intensity of pleasure, repetition of pleasure to maintain the same levels of happy hormones. You know which happy hormones I'm talking? Dopamine, serotonin, endorphins, oxytocin. And when you don't get enough, what happens? The stress hormones kicks over. Cortisol level goes very high. Adrenaline rushes. Gives you a palpitation of the heart. Blood pressure increases. These are all the consequences of sadness, sorrowful state, anger. So idea is to how to balance this sympathetic parasympathetic system, relaxed state as well as the stressfulness. You should not be so relaxed that you become so lazy, and you should not be so tensed that you simply freeze and do nothing at all. Another classical example of fear. If there was no fear, what would have happened? If nobody had the fear in their heart about something, what would have happened? Imagine politicians, murderers, with roaming this planet without fear. It is good that some level of fear, some level of conscience is still there amongst human beings. So, balanced state is the way to go. Happiness, as long as we crave for happiness, the sorrow, the sadness will trail on its way. You cannot avoid one without the other. It's a whole spectrum of it. Sahasmark stands for this simple thing, transcending both. Anyway, we go to the next one, next level of cause and what it affects. Deva is a term for causal element or Karan Tattva, which is in between the gross and the subtle. Now, since this word Karan, meaning causal element, is mentioned here, I wish you don't get confused with the causal body that we have been talking about in the evolution of consciousness. There are many meanings of this word in Sanskrit, meanings of Deva. For example, one is deity, another is king, third one is brother-in-law, fool, a boy, man of occupation, spear and javelin, competition, title of Brahman, and Kayastha, castes, organs, goddess, Durga, queen, title of highborn lady, worship, reverence, etc. These are the meanings of the word Deva. All these are apparent meanings. The real meaning is to play or to shine. From this word Deva, I think another word has also come, Divya or Diya, like a lamp that gives light. Also from Dev, divine, Deviya. Here the causal meaning or the etymological meaning is given, which means shining, that which plays and shines in all things. This is a condition of peace and rest, which expresses the soul. Remember, it expresses the soul. It's not the soul the way we understand it as Karana or the causal. The happiness that is experienced on settling of the soul in this causal condition and the sorrow that is felt on soul's unsettling are described as Adi Devika. Generally, people call the sorrow caused by the sun, the moon, thunder, lightning, etc. as Adi Devika, which is wrong. They think since these are the objects, celestial objects, they represent devas, gods. So they make it as Adi Devika, but it is not true. It's a physical thing. Sun is a physical thing. So it falls under Adi Bhautika. These are still being caused by certain forces external to ourselves. Our responses determine the outcome of being or otherwise falling into this trap. That is why need for centering oneself and rising above and see the cause. Whatever be the trigger, I need to handle the outcome, be it sorrow or happiness. More importantly, happiness. When you're happy, you don't bother about it. But a wise man will surely worry about why this happiness. He will think so many ways of how to come to a sthita pragya state, not too much of excitement. Though he might pretend that I'm so happy, etc., etc. But he will not go to that extent of forming impressions. Simply put, the way I am leading my life must not create more and more samskars. Babuji's wisdom, more and more of less and less. Understand the minimalistic approach. Danes are very famous for this minimalistic designs and minimalistic approach in furniture. I think it will be wonderful if these Danes especially begin with this idea of designing their own personal life with minimalistic approach. Less and less sanskars, less and less complexities. They look so gentlemanly, by the way, this is a side comment, but a lot needs to be thought over it. Babuji Maharaj must have made this comment, perhaps he had too much of hookah, when he said Denmark will be the capital one day, capital of spirituality. I think like a father who keeps telling his innocent or playful children that one day you'll be great. Those were the, childhood days of Denis Abhyasis. He was inspiring them. Though I like to see also Denmark grow up and become a spiritual capital. But do you, as Danes, see yourself forming a spiritual capital? I will join your prayers and I will join you in difficult work. But where is the commitment that we all have? Rather, where is the commitment we all should have? We should have a healthy competition. Why just Denmark a spiritual capital? The third category, the soul is that in which there is movement and thinking. This is one of a kind, never thought about in any literature in India. Atman, the definition, the way Lalaji Maharaj has described, is phenomenal. He says Atma, dissect this word At and Man. At, A-T-H, meaning movement. And Man, related to mind, means thinking. One that moves and thinks or contemplates is Atman. What is Brahman? Brahm is something that expands, Bruha. The word Bruha and Man makes one single word. From these two words, Bruha and Man, he derives one word, Brahm. Bruha means to expand. Man here means contemplation. When we see the difference, then you can say, what is the difference between movement and expansion? Movement is always linear. Expansion is multidimensional. It's in 3D. So you can see the limitations between movement and expansion. That is the nature of Atman and that is the nature of Brahman. Brahman is not limited by Dvandvaj. What do we understand when we say, Master has put me now in Brahman Mandal? Or now I have moved into Para Brahman Mandal. It only means the Dvandvas that were restricting my life has been transcended and now I have moved into expansive state where I expand and contemplate like Brahma. That is why it's Brahman Mandal. When we cross even this aspect of expansion and contemplation is going beyond Brahma, that means you are going into Parabrahma. At each higher level, our previous limitations are transcended. And based on this, the vibratory level that we experience will be of a different level. The sorrow felt while we were on the first point. Happiness felt while we were on the first point. Both will be different when we are moving upward. Often, when you see a painful thing and you're in higher regions, they glue to you for days together because you're so sensitive. Even the smallest of pinprick, smallest of hurt at emotional level, smallest of thing that you witness in your family member that is hurting them will become mega in a person who is conscious, who is advanced. Of course, he may not react the way a person at a lower level reacts. He doesn't go gaga or doesn't start crying, but heart remains extremely lighter. At the same time, depending on situation, if it is sad, he'll remain sad inside but will not reflect it outside. Okay, we move on now. And these two states of movement and thinking or contemplation, the Atman, movement and thinking in mind, and as such, it alone becomes the soul, the force that keeps things going. Its characteristics are happiness, sorrow, knowledge, ignorance, attachment, hatred, desire, and effort. See, it's how it is building up, the stages and dualities. It is related to three kinds of movement and thinking. And its movement and stability are at work in all three states. Now he describes which are those three states. The first state, the first is the gross body. The second is the causal body or the soul. And the third is something in between. Third is its own internal condition, inverted reflection, namely the heart region. In this alone are experienced either happiness or sorrow due to the settling or unsettling of the currents of disposition. This kind of happiness and sorrow is called Adhyatmic, which is in our control. Adhibhautika, external elements to us, they are not in our control. But how we respond to it is in our control. Similarly, Adhidaivika, similarly this, Adhyatmic, They are all in our control. Simply means how we respond to these inner as well as external impulses, external or internal causes. The kinds of happiness and sorrow is called, this sort of happiness and sorrow is called adhyatmic, that is pertaining to the movement and contemplation. Adhyatmic is the name of the condition of the mind only. So, to summarize these three, settling or unsettling of the currents of disposition, if it is on the body, because of this Panchabhutas, it is Adibhautika. Settling or unsettling of this current disposition, if it is on the heart, it is Adhyatmic. And if it is on the soul, or this Deva Tattva as we call it, is Adidevika. The way we respond to this Adhyatmic play, that makes us design our destiny. Other two are not in our control. This is definitely in our control. For example, a housewife wishes and then desires and then expects and then demands and then ultimately says it is her right to be served. For example, especially this is a problem in the modern society today. I would say modern society is confused society, and the residents, Indian residents, especially overseas, are prime example of it. We call them NRIs, and especially people who are at home, mainly ladies. They expect best of both the worlds. They want best of Indian, and they want also the Western lifestyle. Especially more and more these younger couples that is migrating overseas. Why is the demand? Oh, I have done so much of work, I stayed home. Now you have to do dishes, you have to do the vacuum, you have to do the laundry, you have to do the ironing of clothes. You wonder what becomes of this poor husband. He has been slogging 12 hours, comes home dragging his feet tired, and you demand these things. What happens to that person's happiness? Suppose if he does it, would you be happy? Internally, you will still feel sorrow, though the other person has completed that work. But somehow your ego dwells upon and creates a hell in a family. Just because you have developed certain principles. Have you seen your mother or grandmother working like that? Or demanding like that? And you say, oh, I'm in such a hell. But who created this hell? Your demands, your very subtle wishes. So you have to re-look at your life and say, am I causing this adhyatmic or adi daivik or adi bhautik problems in my life? To me, both are problems, happiness as well as sorrow. As long as we identify ourselves with both, you cannot escape the trap of forming samskaras. The whole Sahajmarg philosophy is how to avoid forming samskaras. If you identify yourself with body or with mind, with emotions or sensual pleasures, or happiness or sorrow arising out of all these things, we are creating web around our existence, complexities, and that will tie us up. We continue. The waking state is the representation of the disposition settling on and unsettling from the body. The dream region is the representation of the disposition settled on and unsettling from the mind. The deep sleep or susupti is the play of disposition settling on and unsettling from the soul. It is known that no person can always remain in the state of deep sleep. He has to return to the dream and waking states eventually. If such is the case, how can eternal happiness be attained? At the same, all the three states are within the cycle of time. Wherever the idea of happiness is found, there will necessarily be the impressions of the sorrow, because both sorrow and happiness are relative terms. But it is possible, to a certain extent, to create a wonderful state quite different from happiness and sorrow. So now Lalaji is expanding it further. See how and why it is needed to go beyond this happiness and sorrow and create a different state altogether. And he says this is possible if only one practices to remain conscious in the state of sushupti, tries to maintain his disposition dispassionately, and produces the state of merger and negation. It's a lot, no? It's a very complex solution is offering. But simply put, you can call it as witnessing. Witness, even susupti. And such a wonderful state can be retained even after coming back to the dream and conscious states. This alone is called bliss or supreme happiness. It is not only difficult to attain but also difficult to understand it. But a deficiency remains even at this stage. See, even though it is blissful, deficiency remains. That's why to transcend bliss, you see, Babuji says about how we move from or we transcend religion. It is not that we avoid religion, we transcend, enter the field of spirituality. That too has to be transcended to reality, and that too has to be bypassed. Actually, all these things happens automatically. We don't have to try anything new except our practice. Bliss is automatically transcended. See, the effort to merge, effort to have negation, efforts of this or efforts of that, they're all redundant. Only effort that is required is meditate well to your heart's content and see how it unfolds one condition after the other. Okay, the last part was this alone is called bliss or supreme happiness. It is not only difficult to attain but also difficult to understand. A deficiency remains even at this stage where you feel blissful. If even the slightest discrimination of experience of bliss still remains in an individual, then there will be some level of sorrow, however small. Real life will begin to express itself only when the mind becomes pure through renunciation and practice and merges itself in that state. I'll share with you how I used to feel when I used to be so blissful, superb condition. You are so absorbed in remembrance of Master. Nothing mattered, nothing to worry about in the whole world. But as the condition of this absorbency was maturing, I would suddenly become sorrow, become sad, despite of having such a refined state prevailing inside for days together. Why? My experience showed that each time I had this state, I would lose it. What if I lose this? That used to spoil the whole thing. And also, years of experience of being in that state showed me that whenever I felt good and blissful, something horrible will happen. So, whenever good condition prevailed in me, I said, not again. Something wrong is in the offing, or something terrible is in the offing that is going to happen. See? But then that has to be also be passed. I think good condition came so that I could tackle what was troublesome in the offing. So it is the gift from the masters that whenever we have a great condition, it is because it is a great condition and you have to enjoy it, or he's preparing you for the worse. Okay. This world, oh, this is superb. Lalaji says, this world is the world of possibilities. There is, of course, every possibility of a possible event, but the most wonderful thing is that there is also the possibility of an impossible event becoming possible. This is perhaps to me, the ultimate optimism. Ultimate optimism because you didn't see that this is going to happen, but something has developed, unfolded magnificently. Something impossible has just come about. That is Sahaj Mark, beauty of Sahaj Mark. See, I've found myself many a times in irreversible situation where there is a dead end and you don't see any solution. When you are driving and you see a dead end and you can't go, imagine somebody lifts you up and puts you on the other side of the road. I feel like that. Many a time the help comes like that from the masters. So don't give up. Even when there is a dead end, be happy. Something good will emerge from that. Have faith. But don't remain inactive at that time. Say, have faith, something will happen. Your efforts, whatever they are, continue. It is a known thing that after coming back from the state of sushupti, there is freshness and vigor in the body. It comes to an end when it is spent in routine works of conscious state, contemplation, and practice. But if one gets control on oneself by means of practice and renunciation, one can retain the happiness of sushupti throughout. Lalaji is talking as if this thing can be ordered. Perhaps it was possible for him. Things could be ordered, but by looking at the previous example of making impossible things possible, I think if you simply desire for it, yes, I can have such a state. Why not? You can have that. But practice well. There are many creatures in this world which sleep while awake. He gives an example. Horses running on the battlefield, or God intoxicated persons. The waking and dream states of such persons are one and the same. I have seen many abhyasis during Bandara times. Even before Bandaras, they work 24/7. They hardly sleep, maybe half hour, 1 hour, 2 hours. Why go to that extent? While I was doing my volunteer work in 1979, my first volunteer work, perhaps active volunteer work, during Babuji's birthday that was hosted in Ahmedabad, 30th April 79. My colleges were on, and not just on, exams were going on, final exams. So you can imagine Bandara on one side, attraction of Babuji on another side. Third thing is this exam. Fourth thing is my volunteer work. That used to be picking up abhyasis from railway station, bringing them to the venue and taking them later on, see, to the railway station again. I would come in the morning, do all my duties, go to college, give exams, come back to the venue. Hardly slept, but I never missed it. And such is the case with many of our volunteers. Somehow this intoxication takes over so much. You can't, even if you wanted to sleep, you just can't fall asleep. See? And you were in fact happy that, wow, I'm not sleepy. So that's why I shared this um, humorous thing with a lot of our old folks. They say, oh, I'm not able to sleep. I say, be thankful to God. Now you have the opportunity of being in constant remembrance with open eyes in your bed. Thank God. I mean, meditate at that time and don't worry too much. You're not going to work anyway. Sleep during that time if it comes again. Often worrying about sleep is a problem. It is worse than having no sleep. Don't worry too much. There's a Persian quote by Lalaji. He says, Khwabo bedaryam, sudah yaksam, az inayat sohbate piran. It means the same thing, that the person who is intoxicated in God's love, that sohbat of the peer, company of the masters, helps you transcend all these things, your waking state, sleeping state, dream state. The meaning here, the actual meaning of this Persian couplet is, my waking state and the state of deep sleep became one and the same by the grace of the company of saints. But this happiness also is not lasting. To remove this defect, one should practice to merge one's disposition of mind in Brahman for some days. As I said, Lalaji is ordering prescription one by one. He said, have your mind's disposition towards Brahman. How to do this? And he says, have this disposition of mind towards Brahman for a few days. When the disposition begins to attain the form of Brahman, the first condition will be revealed. The disposition can understand the form of Brahman. It then merges in the form. Another state of bliss will be revealed in the state of merger. And when the difference between the Brahman and individual soul is wiped off, sorrows will come to an end. Then there will be no fear of disposition being removed. The drop and the ocean become one. Absorption in Brahma means transcending dualities, dvandvas, also mastering three gunas that plays havoc in life. So in brief, what do we get out of this chapter that we read out on three kinds of happiness and sorrows? What do we learn from this? If you have to dissect, first find out what makes you happy, what makes you sorrow, what makes you sad, what makes you angry. See, the whole family can analyze the whole thing and see which buttons not to push for the other and make them unhappy. At least that much we can do to start with. Second, practice diligently and master each condition. Don't let them go away just like that. Our mistake is only this: though we enjoy meditation, we fail to recognize the condition, we fail to hold on to it, we fail to expand it further. So whatever labor we have, put into these things is wasted actually. It is like you have worked, the boss gives you salary in the form of cash perhaps, and you on the way back home you invest it in a liquor perhaps, or in gambling. You lose it on the way. How will you support the family? When conditions are lot, how will you support our spiritual empire? You cannot build it. And that is the biggest sorrow. I made a remark on enjoying or taking benefits of both the lives. Easygoing husband with it. You expect that, also expecting the Western lifestyle. These two are incompatible things. Either you be totally Western, both of you, or to be totally Eastern. I'm talking mainly for the families. Overall happiness. I'm not talking of individual happiness. I'm talking very mundane level of happiness. Harmony. Would you take a sleeping pill and also amphetamine? Or take half a dozen cup of coffee? It's incompatible. There is no compatibility between these two things. Would you take a laxative pill and also something that will give you constipation? It doesn't work. It will fail. So the lifestyle and interaction with each other should be of that level of compatibility. See, choose a lifestyle. Don't mix it up because this is good from this culture, this is good from that culture. You make a mess of your life. That's it. Not just you creating sorrow, but you're creating a hell for you and your family. So with this, I would end this chapter, and next chapter would be the next one. I don't know the title, so I can't say.